Hey everyone and welcome! Today we're diving into the world of costume buying.
Yeah, we're going behind the scenes of those amazing costumes you see on screen and stage.
We've got tons of resources like career guides, interview tips.
We're going to break down what it really takes to make it as a costume buyer.
So think about those incredible costumes, like a beautiful period gown.
Or how about a futuristic spacesuit?
Okay, so how does a costume buyer actually take that vision and make it real?
They're the ones who find it all. Literally everything. The fabrics, the threads.
Even like the buttons and stuff?
Oh, every tiny detail. And if they can't buy the perfect piece, they know where to rent it.
Wow. So they're like fashion detectives.
Totally.
Yeah.
Always on the hunt for the best quality. But, of course, they've got to stick to a budget, too.
Right, because those costumes can't be cheap. So budgeting must be a huge part of the job.
Huge. Costume buyers are like expert negotiators, always comparing prices, making sure they're getting the best deal.
So it's not just knowing your fabrics, it's knowing the value of those fabrics too.
Exactly. And knowing how they work, how a fabric drapes, how it'll look under stage lights,
Right. Or how it'll show up on camera.
and how durable it is. A good costume buyer knows if a fabric can handle being washed 100 times or if it'll fall apart after one wear.
Wow, that's a lot to think about. So you're not just shopping, you have to be like a textile expert.
You got it. It takes a special kind of person to be a costume buyer.
Someone who loves fashion but is also super organized, right?
Totally. Someone who's creative but also good with deadlines, loves collaborating, a real team player.
Okay, so we've got a good idea of what they do. But what's the day-to-day like for a costume buyer? Where do they work?
It really depends. You might find them in studios, production offices, on set, even in fabric stores.
So it's a pretty fast-paced job then.
Oh, yeah. And those deadlines can be pretty intense, especially towards the end of a project. Late nights, weekend work, you know how it is.
Wow, that's dedication. But there must be some serious perks to make up for all those long hours.
Definitely. I mean, imagine watching a movie and seeing those amazing costumes you helped create.
Okay, yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Or seeing the actors bring those characters to life on stage,
Yeah.
wearing the costumes you found.
That must be so rewarding. Now, you mentioned technology, and in our research for RoleCatcher, we saw that technology is becoming a bigger part of this field.
Oh, absolutely. It's not all about needles and thread anymore.
So it's a mix of traditional skills and new technology.
Exactly. Digital tools are so important now for design, sourcing, budgets, even just communicating with people.
So even though we're talking about costumes, you need tech skills.
For sure. And one of the biggest changes recently has been 3D printing.
Wait, really? 3D printing for costumes?
It's huge. Think about those super intricate costume details or even whole accessories. You can create them with 3D printing.
Wow, that's incredible. Do you have any examples of how that's used?
Have you seen the latest superhero movie?
But the awesome costumes, yeah.
They use 3D printing for those helmets. Can you imagine trying to make those any other way?
They're so detailed, it would take forever.
Exactly. It's amazing to see how technology is changing the game for costume buyers.
It really feels like the future of costume design.
It really is incredible how technology is changing things, yeah.
It's like technology and tradition working together, right?
Exactly. But no matter how advanced things get, you still need that human touch,
It's true. Technology can't replace creativity. Speaking of which, what's the job outlook like for costume buyers?
Oh, it's a good time to be in the industry, that's for sure. There's always a need for talented people who can bring those costume ideas to life.
So there's demand for the job, but I'm guessing it's also pretty competitive, right?
Yeah, you've got to be ready to hustle. A strong portfolio is key, and networking is huge.
Makes sense. This isn't the kind of job you just fall into, right?
Definitely not. You need passion, dedication, and a good pair of shoes for all that running around.
Huh. Okay, so we've talked about the excitement, the tech, the creative side of things, but let's be real for a sec. What about the not so glamorous stuff? What are some of the downsides of being a costume buyer?
Well, we've talked about the deadlines, right? Those can be tough. Long hours, weekend work, sometimes even holidays.
So work-life balance can be a challenge.
It can be. And there's a lot of pressure, too.
Yeah.
Balancing creative visions with budgets, dealing with last-minute changes.
It sounds like you need to be able to handle stress. Any tips for someone who wants to avoid burnout in this field?
It's so important to find ways to de-stress, Set boundaries, take breaks when you can, and remember to have fun. That's why we do this.
Right. That's so true. It's easy to get caught up in the chaos and forget to enjoy it. But even with the challenges, RoleCatcher highlights some amazing rewards in their guide. What makes this career path so fulfilling?
For me, it's the creativity, Every production is like a new world to explore, with different characters, different time periods.
And you get to be a part of bringing those characters to life.
Yeah, and working with such a talented team, designers, actors, everyone brings their own unique energy to the project.
It sounds like there's a real sense of community in this field.
It really is. We're all passionate about the same thing, you know.
Yeah.
It's pretty special.
Okay, so let's say someone's listening and they're totally hooked. They want to become a costume buyer. Where do they even start?
A lot of people start as assistants, maybe interning on smaller productions to get their foot in the door.
So it's all about gaining experience, even if it's not the most glamorous work at first.
Exactly. It's a chance to learn from experienced professionals, make connections, and build your portfolio.
Those connections must be so valuable in this industry.
Oh yeah, this industry is all about who you know. And who knows you, of course.
That makes sense. So RoleCatcher talks about the different stages of a costume buyer's career, from junior buyer to senior buyer. What are some of the key differences as you move up the ladder?
Well, at the junior level, it's all about learning the ropes. You'll be sourcing materials, negotiating with vendors, managing budgets.
So kind of like an apprenticeship in a way?
Yeah, you could say that. And then as you gain more experience, you move up to more senior roles with more responsibility, you know. You might be leading a team, working more closely with designers.
So more creative input, bigger budgets, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And then eventually you might become a senior buyer, which is like being the captain of the ship, basically.
Wow, the captain of the costume department. That's awesome. So you're like the mentor for the whole department. That's amazing. It sounds like you need a ton of experience to get to that level. But what about formal education? Do you need a specific degree to become a costume buyer?
You know, it really varies. Some people come from a fashion design background, while others might have experience in theater or film.
So it's more about the skills and knowledge than a piece of paper.
Exactly. It's about understanding fabrics, construction, costume history, that kind of thing.
So you need a good mix of creativity and technical know-how. But how do you actually learn all that stuff? Are there schools for costume buyers?
Well, there are some specialized programs, but a lot of it comes from experience, you know, working your way up, learning from mentors.
So it's a combination of formal education and on-the-job training.
Absolutely. And don't forget about self-study. There are tons of books, workshops, online resources. You can always be learning.
That's true. Fashion's always changing, so you got to stay updated.
Oh, yeah. Trade shows, industry magazines, social media. It's all part of the job.
It's like being a fashion detective and a trend forecaster all at once. Okay, so you've put in the work, you've learned the ropes, you're ready to land that dream job. What's the interview process like for a costume buyer?
Well, luckily for us, RoleCatcher gave us some great insights into that.
Yeah, they provided a bunch of common interview questions, which is super helpful.
It's like a sneak peek into the hiring manager's mind.
Totally. So were there any questions that stood out to you? Ones that really reveal a lot about a candidate?
One that always comes up is, how do you stay up to date with the latest fashion trends?
That seems like a simple question, but I bet it tells you a lot about someone's passion.
Exactly. It shows if they're truly invested in the industry.
And if they're willing to keep learning and growing.
For sure. And then there are the behavioral questions, like, can you tell us about a time you had to make a last-minute change to a costume?
Oh, those are good. Because in this industry, I'm sure things change all the time.
All the time. So you want to know how someone handles pressure? How they problem solve on the fly?
It's all about being adaptable and resourceful, right?
Exactly. Those real-life examples tell you so much more than just a resume.
This has been such an eye-opening look at the world of costume buying. I feel like we've only scratched the surface, though.
Oh, there's so much more to explore.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully this has given everyone a good starting point.
Definitely. For anyone listening who's feeling inspired, remember, the world of costume design is always evolving.
So get out there, explore your creativity, and who knows, maybe you'll be designing the next iconic costume.
And that's a wrap on today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us, everyone.